My husband and I had an anniversary dinner reserved when his mother called. "Son, I'm sick, come immediately." He rushed out, but instead of a sick mother, he found himself dining with the future wife she chose. I pretended to know nothing, but my plan was already in motion. When she saw my surprise, her face turned pale. "My name is Amy Johnson. I'm a marketing director at an advertising agency." At 7 a.m. I woke up just before the alarm clock rang, as usual. Next to me, my husband Robert was still breathing deeply in his sleep. Looking at his peaceful sleeping face, I remembered that today was our wedding anniversary, and a smile naturally appeared on my face. "Good morning, sleepyhead." When I gently kissed Robert's cheek, he smiled while still half asleep. He's 36 and a well-respected local architect. His creative yet meticulous personality shows in his work, and his designed buildings always receive high praise. It's been 10 years since we met in college, and 7 years since we got married, but my heart still skips a beat at his warm smile. "Good morning. Today's a special day." Robert finally opened his eyes and took my hand. The feel of his large hand brings me comfort. "You remembered. How could I forget? I've reserved the best restaurant for today. La Maison Bluey." I nearly jumped up with excitement. La Maison Bluey is the most difficult to book upscale French restaurant in town. Since it opened, we hadn't been able to go there even once. "How did you get a reservation?" "That's a secret," Robert winked and said. "I know the chef through work connections, and he specially arranged a table for us." That afternoon, I left work earlier than usual and went home. Just as I was about to prepare for our special night, the telephone in the living room rang. I saw it was from my mother-in-law, Martha. I picked up the receiver with a small sigh inside. "Hello, Martha. Amy, dear, how are you today? Is Robert well?" Martha Johnson, my 62-year-old mother-in-law, is known locally as a successful real estate agent. Since my husband's father passed away 5 years ago, her interference in our lives had grown stronger. Her attitude toward me was especially always critical, often giving me looks that seemed to say, "My son could have done better." "Yes, he's fine. Today is our wedding anniversary, so we have plans for a special dinner." It might have been a bit mean, but I mentioned it deliberately. I was curious about what Martha would say. "Oh my, that's right. Congratulations." Contrary to my expectations, Martha's voice was kind and even had a warmth to it. Over the past few weeks, her attitude had suddenly changed. Previously critical about everything, she had strangely become nice lately, praising my work and my appearance. "Thank you. I'd like to celebrate your anniversary. Can you both come over tomorrow? I'll prepare a special lunch." More unnatural kindness. Something was off. Martha is only this nice to me when she's plotting something. Last month, she suddenly said she wanted to introduce a lovely young man, a friend of mine, and invited Robert and me to a dinner party. That young man never showed up, but instead, Robert's high school ex-girlfriend was coincidentally there. It was obvious she had tried to set up a staged meeting. After hanging up, I stood in front of the mirror selecting a dress for the evening, and wondered what was behind Martha's unnaturally kind behavior lately. What was she planning? But today was a special day. I should try not to worry about my mother-in-law. At least I would pretend not to on the surface. After showering, I put on my favorite black cocktail dress and styled my hair up. When I returned to the bedroom after finishing my makeup, Robert had returned from work. He had already changed into a suit and was wearing my favorite blue tie. "You look beautiful," he smiled at me. "You look handsome too," Martha called. "Apparently she wants to invite us to lunch tomorrow." "Yes, she called me too," I answered while putting final touches in front of the mirror. "Don't you think Martha's been acting strange lately? She's suddenly become nice to me." Robert shrugged. "She's probably just lonely. Since Dad died, she's been alone." I didn't say more. Sometimes Robert can't see through his mother's actions. He's too kind. It was obvious Martha was plotting something, but tonight I decided to forget about it and enjoy our time together. "Let's go." I took Robert's arm. "The reservation is at 7, right?" "That's right. We should arrive right on time." As we were leaving the house, I checked my mobile phone. There was a strange text message from Martha. "Have a wonderful time tonight. A special blessing awaits you both." I had an ominous feeling, but I shook it off. Robert and I were all set to head to the restaurant. He had the car keys in hand, and I was doing a final check of my clutch bag's contents. Tonight was special, a celebration of 7 years of marriage. I had decided to put aside my mother-in-law Martha's suspicious behavior for now. "How do you like my earrings, honey?" I tilted my head slightly to show Robert. They were the diamond earrings he had given me last year as an anniversary present. "Perfect. You're always beautiful." Just as he said that, Robert's smartphone rang. He frowned, looking at the screen. "It's from Mom." After a moment's hesitation, he answered. I felt an indescribable sense of foreboding. It seemed too coincidental that Martha would call today, at this time. "Hello, Mom?" Robert answered cheerfully, but his expression quickly changed. What's wrong?" His tone suddenly shifted, and I could see the color draining from his face. I moved closer and placed my hand on his shoulder. "I understand, I'll be right there. Calm down, Mom." After hanging up, Robert looked at me apologetically. "Amy, it seems my mother has collapsed." I inwardly sighed. The timing of all this today was too perfect, but I tried not to show it on my face. "That's all right, go to her. But today is if Martha is really unwell, you need to go." "I'll be fine." Robert gave me a grateful look. "I love you. I'll come back as soon as possible, then we'll go to the restaurant." He rushed out. As the front door closed, I felt the tension leave my shoulders. Something was off. I sensed it intuitively. Martha's unnaturally kind behavior recently, and now this emergency coming at this timing. When I returned to the living room, something was gleaming on the coffee table. It was Robert's smartphone. He must have left it behind in his hurry. As I was debating whether to take it to him, the screen lit up. It was a notification for a new message. Normally, I would respect my husband's privacy and not look, but I noticed the sender's name was Mom. A message from my mother-in-law, who had just supposedly collapsed. I couldn't help but peek at the screen. "Caroline is expected to arrive at 7. She's really looking forward to seeing you." Caroline? Who could that be? And why would my supposedly collapsed mother-in-law send such a message? Something was definitely wrong. I unlocked the phone. I knew the password. We shared our smartphone passwords with each other. I immediately opened the past messages with Martha. "Robert, Caroline has returned from New York. She still cares about you." "Mom, can't you stop this already? She's become a doctor and does charity work too. She's nothing like Amy. I love my wife. Please don't bring this up again." This exchange was from a few weeks ago, and then today's events. "Robert, I want you to meet Caroline tonight. You two were originally such a well-matched couple." "Mom, today is my wedding anniversary. It's absolutely impossible. Then I'll do a bit of acting. Don't worry, everything will work out." I felt my head getting hot. Martha was pretending to be sick to call Robert over and try to set him up with a woman named Caroline. And now, my husband was headed to his mother's house, on our anniversary. Anger welled up, but I took a deep breath and calmed myself. Getting emotional wouldn't solve anything. I needed to handle this calmly. First, I called my friend Jessica. She's been my close friend since college and always gives level-headed advice. "Amy, what's up? Isn't it your anniversary today?" "Jessica, something terrible has happened." I explained the whole situation to her. "Oh my goodness. What are you going to do now?" "I'm going to Martha's house pretending to deliver Robert's phone, but I won't go in directly. I want to see what's happening first." "Is that safe? Should I come with you?" "I'll be fine, but if anything happens, I'll contact you right away." After hanging up, I put Robert's smartphone in my bag and got into my car. Martha's house was in the suburbs, about a 20-minute drive away. During the journey, various emotions conflicted within me, feelings of betrayal, anger, and sadness. But the strongest was determination. Whatever Martha's plan was, I intended to protect my relationship with my husband. As I approached Martha's house, I parked on the street and walked quietly toward the house. Warm light was spilling from the large windows. To get a glimpse of what was happening inside, I peered through the gaps in the garden shrubs. What I saw made me freeze. In the dining room, 3 people were in front of an elegant table setting: Robert, Martha, and an unfamiliar woman, presumably Caroline. Far from being sick, Martha was energetically moving around, distributing wine glasses. The woman was beautiful, with a sophisticated air about her, sitting next to Robert, touching his arm familiarly while talking. Something inside me nearly broke. But I didn't let my emotions take over. Dealing with this situation required calmness. I quietly went around to the front of the house and rang the doorbell. A few seconds later, I heard footsteps hurrying down the stairs. Then the door opened, and Martha appeared. She seemed to panic for a moment when she saw me, but quickly put on a pained expression, tightening her bathrobe and wrapping a shawl around her shoulders. Amy, what brings you here? Her voice suddenly became weak. Good evening, Martha. I tried to act as normally as possible. Robert left his phone behind, so I came to deliver it. I thought he'd be here. Martha was clearly flustered. Yes, I'm feeling a bit unwell. Are you all right? I came to check on you. I deliberately peered into the house. Where's Robert? Martha stumbled over her words. Just then, Robert's voice came from the dining room. Mom, who is it? I slipped past Martha and entered. Passing through the living room, when I stepped into the dining room, I saw exactly what I had expected. Robert and the unfamiliar woman sitting side by side, with a beautifully decorated dinner table prepared. Both looked clearly surprised to see me. Amy. Robert stood up with a troubled expression. Why are you? I brought your smartphone, I said calmly. You left it behind. The air in the room froze. Martha tried to say something, but words seemed to fail her. Caroline looked perplexed, looking back and forth between me and Robert. Amy, this is? Robert tried to explain. Don't worry, I smiled gently. I believe I understand everything. I took off my shoes and naturally entered the house as if I had been invited. In the dining room, Robert remained standing, frozen in place. The woman sitting next to him, presumably Caroline, was smiling politely, but there was obvious distress in her eyes. Martha had followed me from the entrance and was still trying to pretend to be ill. Amy, you. Martha began with a trembling voice. Don't worry, Martha, I said in a calm voice. Since it's a special night, I thought I'd join you. The atmosphere in the room instantly froze. Robert was looking back and forth between me and his mother, trying to understand the situation. I could see confusion in his eyes. Mom, what's going on? Robert asked. I came because you said you had collapsed. Martha couldn't say anything and just stood there. Caroline also remained silent, but there was a hint of anxiety visible on her face. Robert, our anniversary dinner has been ruined, I said while taking out my phone from my bag. But it's okay. I'll arrange to have the food delivered here from the restaurant. Robert was confused. Amy, I was just worried about Mom. I know, I interrupted him gently and smiled. You came because you were worried about your mother. I came because I was worried too. I called the restaurant and asked if they could deliver our reserved dinner to Martha's address. Fortunately, La Maison Bluey also offered delivery service for special clients. After hanging up, Caroline spoke for the first time. Nice to meet you, Amy. I'm Caroline Wilson, she said in a refined voice. I'm sorry for intruding so suddenly. Robert and I are old friends, and I was happy to see him after so long. I observed her carefully. She appeared to be in her early 40s and was indeed beautiful. Perfect blonde hairstyle, an expensive-looking dress, and an air of confidence. She had the atmosphere of the ideal woman Martha would have chosen for her son. Nice to meet you too, I smiled back. I'm glad to meet an old friend of Robert's. I brought extra tableware from Martha's kitchen to set the table for 4. Martha was trying to regain her composure, but it was clear she was still flustered. Robert tried to help me, but confusion still lingered in his eyes. The food will arrive soon, I said. How about some wine while we wait? 20 minutes later, the delivery from the restaurant arrived. The wonderful aroma of fine French cuisine filled the room. I plated the food and brought it to the table. Amidst the tension, our dinner for 4 began. Martha occasionally coughed, still trying to pretend she was unwell. Robert was clearly uncomfortable but seemed to be trying to understand the situation. Meanwhile, Caroline gradually regained her confidence and began to lead the conversation. I'm a cardiac surgeon at Boston General Hospital, she said elegantly while tilting her wine glass. Last month, I also did medical support work in Africa with Doctors Without Borders. That's wonderful, I said as if impressed. In fact, my smartphone was recording the conversation under the table. Caroline is a remarkable woman, Martha joined in. She's a Harvard Medical School graduate and also runs a charity for underprivileged children. That's amazing, I said, sounding genuinely impressed. What kind of charity is it? Caroline began to explain her charitable activities in detail. Her words were fluent and seemingly very convincing at first glance. However, I noticed several inconsistencies. There were subtle discrepancies in the details of the hospital she talked about and the medical terminology she used. As dinner progressed, Robert gradually gravitated toward my side. He seemed reassured by my calmness. Occasionally he would hold my hand and look at me with apologetic eyes. By the time dessert came around, I slowly stood up. "For our anniversary, I have something special," I said, and took out a beautifully wrapped box from my bag. A look of anxiety appeared in Martha's eyes. Caroline wore a smile that couldn't hide her sense of superiority. She seemed to think I had brought a gift for Robert. "This is something important for our future." I placed the box in the center of the table. Robert was looking at me with curiosity and slight confusion. He trusted me, but seemed a bit perplexed by my composure in this situation. "Open it," I said gently. When Robert opened the box, inside was a small digital recorder and a bundle of printed papers. He looked at me with a confused expression. "Press the play button," I encouraged him softly. Sound began to play from the recorder. It was Martha's voice. "Son, I've collapsed. Come right away." Immediately after, a completely different tone of conversation continued in the same Martha's voice. "Caroline is expected to arrive at 7. She's really looking forward to seeing you." Robert's expression hardened. He picked up the printed papers. They were screenshots of messages between him and Martha that had been left on his phone. "Robert, I want you to meet Caroline tonight. You two were originally such a well-matched couple. Mom, today is my wedding anniversary. It's absolutely impossible. Then I'll do a bit of acting. Don't worry, everything will work out." I could see the color draining from Martha's face. Caroline was also visibly shaken and sank deep into her chair. "What is this all about?" Robert's voice was low, trembling with suppressed anger. Martha tried to make excuses but couldn't form words. "Robert, just for your sake. You lied to call me over on my wedding anniversary?" Robert stood up. "And Caroline, did you know about this too?" Caroline couldn't say anything and just stared at the table. "Amy." Robert looked at me. "How did you? It was all by chance," I said calmly. "When you rushed out, you left your smartphone behind." The next message from Martha came through, and I could see it. Robert turned back to his mother. "Mom, this is unforgivable. I love my wife. Please stop interfering." Martha began to cry. Caroline looked uncomfortable. I slowly stood up and took out another box from my bag. "Actually, there's more," I said. All 3 pairs of eyes turned to me. Fear was especially visible in Martha's and Caroline's eyes. What I held was a slightly larger black box than the previous one. "There's something more important in here." As a heavy silence fell over the room, I slowly opened the black box. Caroline's eyes were fixed on the box. Her expression mixed anxiety and panic. Martha sat deep in her chair, covering her mouth with trembling hands. Robert looked confused, glancing alternately between me and the box. "Actually, I've been thinking something was off for several weeks now." I began speaking as I took out a file. I could feel the air in the room becoming even more tense. I noticed that Martha had become unusually kind to me recently. Normally critical about everything, she suddenly started praising me. Not only that, but I overheard her speaking in hushed tones on the phone several times. And she repeatedly mentioned the name Caroline. Martha looked up, giving me a surprised look. She apparently hadn't realized her behavior had been so suspicious. 2 weeks ago, when I came to your house, I accidentally found a photo of Caroline. A drawer was slightly open and it caught my eye. Contact information was written alongside it. Robert gave his mother an accusing look. Martha shrank even smaller, so I contacted my college friend Jessica. She now works as a private investigator. I spread the files on the table. They contained photos, copies of newspaper articles, copies of public documents, and a detailed investigation report. Jessica investigated Caroline for me, and the information she found was shocking. Caroline stiffened. I could see the color draining from her face. "Caroline Wilson, you said you're a cardiac surgeon at Boston General Hospital, right?" She barely nodded. "That's interesting. This is a staff list from Boston General Hospital. For the past 5 years, your name isn't anywhere on it." Robert frowned. "And this is a copy of the Massachusetts Medical License Registry. No cardiac surgeon named Caroline Wilson is registered." I picked up the next document, but the name Caroline Wilson does appear in other records. This is a New York Times article from 3 years ago. Self-proclaimed philanthropist charged with embezzlement of donations. Caroline Wilson, 35, established a fund for underprivileged children, but was charged with using over $500,000 in donations for personal luxuries. Caroline stood up and exclaimed, "This is a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" I calmly took out another document. "Then how do you explain this?" a fraud conviction in Florida, records of identity theft in New Jersey, and most interestingly, these. I laid out 3 photographs. They showed Caroline with different men. She had subtly changed her hairstyle and appearance in each photo, but it was clearly the same person. These 3 men, they're all sons of wealthy families. You became intimate with them, even got engaged. And after receiving engagement rings, expensive jewelry, sometimes even cash, you disappeared. The room fell silent. Martha was dumbfounded. Robert was staring at Caroline with a mixture of anger and surprise. Your real name isn't Caroline Wilson, but Mary Jenkins, isn't it? I showed the final document. You're a con artist targeting wealthy families, and this time, you found a target in Robert Johnson. Caroline, or rather Mary, suddenly stood up and moved toward the door. This is all lies. Don't believe any of it. As she rushed toward the entrance, the door opened, and Jessica and a uniformed police officer were standing there. Mary Jenkins, you're under arrest for probation violation in Florida and suspicion of fraud, the police officer said to her. Caroline had nowhere to run and just stood there. Martha sat with a bewildered expression. I didn't know, she said weakly. I just wanted someone more suitable for Robert. Mom, Robert said in a stern tone, why can't you respect my marriage? Amy is a wonderful wife. Without her, I might have been deceived by a con artist today. Martha seemed to feel genuine guilt for the first time. She repeated, I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. Through her tears, Robert stood next to me and put his arm around my shoulder. Amy, thank you. I'm deeply grateful for your wisdom and calmness. The girl isn't bad? Martha asked, watching Caroline being handcuffed by the police officer. She was wanted in multiple states, I answered. And if Robert had been deceived by her, you might have become a victim too. Martha raised her face to look at me. There was an expression in her eyes I had never seen before, a look of mixed respect and regret. Amy. I'm Martha, I said, looking straight into her eyes. This is your last chance. Don't interfere in our marriage again. Robert and I are happy. Will you acknowledge that? Martha was silent for a long time but finally nodded slowly. I acknowledge it. You are a much stronger woman than I thought. Caroline, or Mary, was taken away by the police. While watching her being put into the police vehicle through the window, Martha still seemed dazed. Mom, Robert said gently. Get some rest tonight. We'll talk again tomorrow. Martha nodded with a tired expression. Yes, I will. We said goodbye to Martha and left the house. Once in the car, Robert let out a long sigh. Amy, I'm truly sorry. I can't believe my mother would do something like this. There's no need to blame yourself. I took his hand. What's important is that you know the truth, and that our relationship has grown stronger. Robert smiled and kissed my hand. So, can we still celebrate our anniversary? Even though it's late. The timing is just right, I grinned. I called La Maison Bluie and asked them to deliver dessert and champagne to our hotel room. Hotel? Robert was surprised. Yes, that luxury hotel, the Grand Regent. I've reserved a suite from today until tomorrow. It's plan B for our anniversary. A smile spread across Robert's face. You're truly amazing. I'm so fortunate. On our way to the hotel, we talked about today's events. When we arrived, dessert and champagne were waiting in the room as promised. We tilted our glasses while viewing the city's night scenery from the balcony. I'm grateful to be with you for the next 7 years, and beyond, Robert said with a serious expression. Marrying you was the best choice of my life. I feel the same way. I looked back into his eyes. Let's continue to overcome challenges together. We exchanged a kiss and reaffirmed our love under the moonlight. I think today's events became an opportunity to strengthen our bond even further. Although in an unexpected way, this wedding anniversary certainly became special. On a peaceful afternoon, several weeks after that night, when I returned home from work, there was a letter in the mailbox. Looking at the sender, I saw Martha Johnson's name. I hesitated for a moment but opened the envelope. Inside was a letter written in Martha's careful handwriting. To my dear Amy. As I read through the letter, tears welled up in my eyes. Martha had written words of sincere apology, the loneliness after her husband's death, the fear of losing her son, and deep regret for how her actions had hurt others. She frankly acknowledged her mistakes and asked for forgiveness. The strength and wisdom you showed that night opened my eyes. I now understand that Robert choosing you was the wisest decision of his life. In the end, Martha expressed her desire to repair her relationship with us. There was sincerity in her words. That same week, we learned the trial results of Caroline or Mary Jenkins. According to Jessica, she was found guilty of fraud, but despite this not being her first offense, she received a suspended sentence because evidence was limited. There were rumors that she had moved to another state and was living a low-profile life. The only certain thing was that she had completely disappeared from our lives. The relationship with Martha improved gradually. She had begun counseling and was trying to understand her behavior patterns. Occasionally, she would call and talk about her progress. There was no excessive interference, like before. Instead, she continued on a journey of self-reflection. For a long time, I gained a sense of security by manipulating people, she confided on the phone one day. My counselor says it was an unhealthy way to deal with my fears. Now I'm learning healthier ways to build relationships. Robert was also surprised and pleased with his mother's changes. He began visiting Martha once a week, and I occasionally accompanied him. At first, it was a bit tense, but gradually I began to enjoy peaceful conversations with Martha. And then, on a spring morning 6 months after that night, we visited Martha's house with special news. It was a beautiful day, with warm sunshine and flowers blooming in the garden. "Mom," Robert said with a smile, "we have something to tell you." We held hands and stood in front of Martha. "We're expecting a baby," I quietly announced. Martha's eyes widened, and pure joy spread across her face, but she quickly contained herself and responded carefully. "Congratulations to both of you. I'm truly happy," she said calmly. "Let me know if there's anything I can help with, but I'll be careful not to be pushy." At those words, I couldn't help but smile. Martha was truly trying to change. "Thank you, Martha," I said sincerely. "Your support means a lot." When I entered my 5th month of pregnancy, we decided to hold a gender reveal party. It was a small party, but we invited family and close friends. Of course, Martha was invited too. On the day of the party, Martha came early to help with preparations. She no longer spoke in a commanding tone but always checked before acting. "How about this? May I help? Amy," she said quietly while helping with decorations. "You'll be a wonderful mother." "Thank you," I looked into her eyes. "I think you'll be a wonderful grandmother too." Tears glistened in her eyes. In the excitement of the party, we popped a large balloon. Pink confetti rose from inside. The moment everyone learned it was a girl, cheers erupted from the gathered crowd. Martha expressed joy modestly and approached me. "Amy," she said, looking slightly embarrassed, "I'm grateful that you opened my eyes. Without that night, I would still be making the same mistakes. I'm truly happy to have the chance to build a healthy relationship with my granddaughter." I took her hand. "Martha, I'm glad we could build a new relationship too. We're family." Since that day, Martha has warmly watched over our pregnancy while maintaining an appropriate distance. Sometimes she brought cute baby clothes, or humbly offered useful advice. All of it came from genuine affection, without any pushiness. That wedding anniversary night became a turning point for our family. Martha changed, and Robert's and my marriage became stronger. Sometimes difficult trials ultimately lead to growth. We were preparing to welcome our new family with that lesson in our hearts. Standing by the window, stroking my rounded belly, I looked up at the sky, a new life and a new beginning. Our story was moving into a new chapter,